Hey everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I am doing a tutorial of the Ernest Die Set. So this set comes with this 2x4 die, and as you can see, there's 4 half circles on this die. So you can see it's kind of a circular die. And there's these extra dies to help you fill in the spaces better. So we have the half circle, we have a full circle. So that circle goes in the middle of 2 different 2x4s. And we have these other 2 filler pieces as well to make cutting easier for you. All right, now that you have been introduced to the dies, let's get started. For today's video, I'm using the Sizzix Big Shot die machine. It is one of our favorites, and I am starting out with the 2x4 Ernest die. So I have a piece of cardstock here that was a little bit bigger than the die itself, just to make sure I have a really good cut. And then I'm rolling it through the machine. I do have the die in at an angle. We find that helps with the pressure when you're rolling it through the machine. So that's what we recommend, is putting your dies in at a little bit of an angle at least. So once you cut it, you want to get the frame piece out. If it's stuck, sometimes it'll just fall out. There's these 4 holes, and they're actually quite bigger than some of our past dies, so it's a lot easier to poke your tweezers through. And right now I'm getting that frame piece, so it sits inside the die itself. That is the piece you want. The rest of the pieces I'm going to throw out, or you can use it for another project. But make sure you save that frame piece. Next, I'm going to cut out some background pieces for the Ernest 2x4 die. So I'm using the 2x4 die from set B. That is the purple set, if you have the colored die bundle. And I have some striped paper, and I could use the little extras, and that is one way to cut those little pieces, so use that if you need. The reason why I'm cutting it into a whole background piece is, first of all, I would need quite a few cuts. I'm using them for the half circle spaces, but it's also the striped paper, and it would kind of be difficult to line up properly if I cut it into each little piece. So I'm just cutting it into one big piece, and then the stripes will line up a lot better. I can get a more accurate cut this way, and a large portion of the paper is going to show through the Ernest die. So now I have the Ernest frames cut and the background for them. So I'm gluing down my first 2x4 piece here with the striped paper. And again, this was just to make it easier to cut this paper. So this is, of course, one option, is to cut a background piece. And I have this first one lined up on the grid. I'm going to line up the rest of them next to it. And this will make it so much easier to put the Ernest die on the grid. First, I'm going to glue my first Ernest cut here, and I'm just taking the glue and swiping it along the edges. Sometimes I press it down in different spots, and there's certainly other ways to glue this. So everyone kind of has their own preference on how they glue the back of these dies. So this is the way I'm showing it for the videos, but if you have any suggestions, please give us a comment below. Alright, now I'm placing the Ernest die over my block, and it was super easy. I didn't have to worry about trying to get it correctly on the grid paper, because with that block, you know that block is already aligned on the grid, and so you just place this on top. So I do find having that background piece makes lining these up easier. And as you can see, it makes a really cool design when all the Ernest dies are together. So now I'm going to show you how I cut some of my photos with the circle die, and the circle die lets you lay this photo on top of sections where it kind of overlaps over 2 different dies. So we'll see that in a moment. I'm cutting this first one. I did print the photos small. So of course, just like with any of our dies, it is important to plan your layout before you start cutting. And for these photos, they weren't taken far away enough, so I printed them down smaller. If you already printed your photos, you can see this circle is pretty small, so you want to use subjects that will fit in that space. So that's why we say take photos from a variety of distances, so when you get home, you have people that'll fit right into that little circle. All right, that was the last circle. So now I'm actually going to cut with the half circle as well. And as you can see, I have a whole 4x6 photo here because I knew those kites, really the half circle die, not enough room to fit any one in. So I figured I'd use more of a decorative die to fill in a couple of those spaces. And I thought this photo of the kites would be perfect, especially since there's some kites that are farther away in the photograph. So if you don't have kites, you could of course use something like flowers or brick or other objects that you can find that'll fit nicely in such a tiny space. So I have my circle die here, and as you can see, the circle will be overlapping or placed over two Ernest die cuts. The half circle cuts really could be placed anywhere since the design is all half circles if you look at it one die at a time. But when you place two next to each other, then they can fit in a whole circle photo, which is really cool. This is what makes the Ernest die really awesome. Is not only do you get a cool design with just the half circles alone, but you'll also get an amazing design where you can place in these full circle cuts. So it's really awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down all of my photos here. And I think it's pretty straightforward. So I'll be back in a moment. Really quick, I just wanted to show you how I cut with the small pieces. This will fill in the center of the Ernest die, well, each of the Ernest die cuts, and I'm just using them to cut this blue cardstock. And they're really tiny, so you can cut both of them at the same time. So that's great, although I'm going to have to cut with the smallest one again. So those are the two little pieces right there. And I'm going to cut with the smallest one again. Roll that through because it only comes with this small, only one of the tiniest one. And if that seems like too much, you can always cut the little pieces with the 2x4 die as well. If you're cutting a lot of those pieces, that might be easier to do that, to get all three cuts at the same time. For these little pieces, I highly recommend the Xyron Create a Sticker Machine. It's one of my favorite ways to add adhesive to the dies, especially ones like these. They are very pointy. I find when you don't glue those really sharp pointed areas, they'll stick up, and it personally annoys me. So I like to make sure they're glued down. And so I like using these machines because it does get the glue underneath the entire die. And then I'm able to just glue it right on my layout. So this is the first one. And as you can see, the striped paper looks really busy, so that's why I put the cardstock in the middle, and I'm going to do that on the rest of my design here because otherwise that striped paper just seems like it's too much. And what's nice is that these spaces are really small, so even though I'm just using plain cardstock, it doesn't seem too boring because, like I said, the spaces are really small. I originally was going to put these in the half circle spaces, but then when I put the layout together, I was like, oh, the stripes lined up better than I thought they would. If you're going to use something like striped paper, you really need to be careful on how you cut them with the dies, because I made sure I put the 2x4 die over each section very carefully so it all looks nice and straight. But here is the completed design with the cardstock. And to finish off the layout, I'm placing in the alphabet dies. This is the Alphabet 3 set. And mainly I use this particular set because the letters fit inside the little diamond space better. The other letter sets are a little bit too big, at least for my liking. If the alphabet dies seem a little bit too big for you, you can obviously find some alphabet stickers. But anyway, this is the final design. I think Ernest is a really fun set to use. So if you really like circles, like if you like the on the dot dies especially, Ernest is a great die set to use. So, and obviously I only filled in some of the space with the full circle and left some of the half circles, but you could fill it all with the full circles. So, and there's multiple ways you can use this one, but I think overall it makes a really fun design. Alright, this is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, give this video a thumbs up and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Alright, I will see you next time.